And we are live. Thank you all for joining us. This is the Finance Magnates podcast. And today we have a pro in the field of both cryptocurrencies and videos, Amanda B. Johnson.
Hello. Hi. Nice to be talking with you.
You as well. So let's start by giving us a short introduction about yourself.
Sure. So it has been said that I am technically the world's first freelancer to be paid by block reward. That is, I am allocated a portion of the Dash block reward roughly every month to help spread awareness of Dash. And before I found myself wanting to work for Dash, which happened about a year ago, I was writing about all sorts of cryptocurrencies in like Bitcoin Magazine and Cointelegraph and Bitcoin.com for a couple of years before that.
Yeah, I knew from your video is on YouTube, the Daily Decrypt. So
the Daily Decrypt, I totally forgot about that. Yes, I also started a seven-month crypto news series called the Daily Decrypt.
I think, well, especially on this platform, maybe a lot of people will know you from this perspective. So our audience, the audience we want to reach is I would say newcomers to cryptocurrency, people that are traders in maybe FX or stocks and are just now hearing. I'm guessing that's the majority of the audience, just now hearing about all these record highs that are reaching. So for those people, for people that are just starting out in the field, how would you define Dash?
Sure. So Dash is basically what a cryptocurrency would be if it offered privacy or rather optional privacy of transactions, because without this feature, a standard blockchain is completely auditable and transparent. So as soon as someone knows your address, they're able to audit anything you ever did with it and anything you ever will do with it. So Dash offers optional privacy, which allows you to obscure away your own coin's histories on our blockchain. And secondly, we offer the equivalent of basically an instant confirmation. If you've ever used a cryptocurrency, say if you deposited on an exchange or something like that, you probably noticed that you were asked to wait for a certain number of confirmations before you were allowed to trade, be it 1 confirmation, 3 confirmations, even 6 confirmations. And this is, of course, not ideal for the speed of commerce. So Dash also offers instant confirmations called instant send, and that feature is beginning to be integrated for us on exchanges, so you can deposit your Dash and begin trading immediately.
Can you explain that, how it works without getting too technical? Because for someone that knows how the blockchain works, the confirmation times are, because it takes time for miners to get the blocks complete and stuff like that. So how would instant confirmation works?
Yeah, you understand perfectly. So the way that we're able to do it without having to wait for the entirety of our mining network to come to a consensus on the next block, which, as you said, takes time, which is not an instantaneous process. The way we're able to do that is we have a second tier of hardware on our network above and beyond miners, and they're called masternodes. And what they're able to do is, if you tell your Dash wallet that you want to send a transaction instant send, that broadcast goes to a randomly selected group of our masternodes, and they put what's called a lock on your input. So now for the next hour, where you say you were a malicious person who is trying to double spend the exchange, for the next hour, that quorum of masternodes will automatically reject any attempt to respend those inputs that you sent in that transaction. So in this way, the exchange can be absolutely certain that they will not be double spent. And certainty that you won't be double spent is equivalent of an instant confirmation.
I see. Okay, just for people that are just trading or just following the price, it's important that to explain that this is a serious issue for anyone that wants to actually use Bitcoin at the moment, because there's a huge backlog of transactions that take a long time to confirm. I think you were, I mean, at least on Finance Magnates, you were the first one to bring up this problem with Bitcoin, and I think that's. I mean, I wouldn't want to put words in your mouth, but why would you say that you moved from a more Bitcoin focus to to being like a Dash advocate, I would say?
Sure. Well, like most people who have been within the crypto sphere for years, I definitely started researching Bitcoin first. I owned Bitcoin first. And it was over the course of a full year, actually, Avi, and this was actually when you first found my work about this topic, that I really just gave myself a sort of method. And my method was, okay, I'm going to, at the time I was watching really the top 10 cryptocurrencies. And Dash was starting to stand out to me as a network that had implicit governance. And that is such a boring thing for me to say. But when I say implicit governance, what I mean is, so these networks, these crypto networks, the only way they can upgrade, the only way they can offer any sort of new feature or make a tweak or fix a bug, any of these things, is for the majority of the network to come together and agree to upgrade. And that can be difficult to do because we're talking about hundreds or thousands of people all over the world who probably don't even speak the same languages, aren't in the same time zones, don't have each other's email addresses or phone numbers. How on earth do you get all of these people to coordinate their actions to upgrade the network? And so I was initially attracted to Dash when I learned that they had implemented a voting mechanism, which meant that all of their master nodes, who are each staked 1,000 Dash, proving that they are significantly invested in the outcome of the network, that they can cast votes that get recorded network-wide, and they can come to consensus on issues within hours. The first headline I read about them using this tool was that they came to a vote to increase their block size within 24 hours. And so I was like, okay, that's impressive. And so kind of as the whole Bitcoin block size problems continued unabated, and as I saw sort of solutions in Dash, I told myself, okay, for every week that I don't see a solution for the Bitcoin block size thing, and for every week that Dash continues to do things that look like solutions, I'm going to sell a bit of Bitcoin for Dash. And this happened over the course of a year. And finally, I had no more Bitcoin left. And the primary reason that I am confident that Dash's underlying how we work is going to be scalable is because we're not relying on blockchain magic. We recognize, okay, we're kind of just actually like a money as a service. We just happen to run a network that has lots of humans we've never met before. So the more efficiently, the more quickly we can operate like a normal business, that is come to consensus on our product. That is fund our own research and development so that we don't have to seek grants and donations or seek unpaid volunteers to work for us. The more that we can do all of these things, probably the more efficiently we can compete. And that's remained true to this day.
Mm-hmm. And would you want to comment on the current issue with Bitcoin, with the blockchain, with the block size, disagreement, just to fill up our audience that are not following up on everything?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's actually something that's at least 3 years old. Basically, years ago, a then core developer of Bitcoin, and granted, he was unpaid by the Bitcoin block reward, right? So already we're talking someone who's like a volunteer. And his name's Gavin Andreessen. He started saying publicly on online forums, I think this block size cap, which is to say the max space that Bitcoin's blockchain can process every 10 minutes, which is currently 1 megabyte. He said, I think that we're going to bump up into this, and I think that we should increase this much sooner than later. And at that time, dissension started pouring in, and a sort of rift started to form, where about half of the people in the forums said, yes, that seems like a good idea, Gavin. And about half of the people in the forums said, absolutely not. And over the past 3 years, this rift has just gone like this, with each side sort of saying, no, let's go this way, and let's go this way. And they get farther and farther apart from each other every day. And the really confusing issue is that it doesn't seem clear who is actually in charge. Because if we're talking just how the network works, only the miners are in charge. Only the miners decide which blockchain is the blockchain. But a majority of miners are actually signaling, we don't want either of these camps' solutions. We just want to keep mining. And so my takeaway from all of this is that the people in charge ought to be the ones who have the most to gain and the most to lose by making a studied decision. And that's not necessarily miners, because if you know anything about miners, you know that their profit model is to buy as many pieces of mining hardware as possible, get as cheap as electricity as possible, and they generally sell most, if not all, of the coins that they mine at the end of every day. So they're not even long-term investors. They're not even really investors a lot of the time. And so what Dash did was say, okay, if we have to have people in charge, which we do, let's make the people who are in charge the people who are holding our coin and holding a significant amount of our coin. And let us give them voting rights on what we should do, so that we don't have these arguments that go like this. And so, yeah, that's where the voting came about.
Mm-hmm. And just to give people some perspective, so I'm looking right now, the price of Dash stands at $180, giving it a market cap well over $1 billion. It's 1.3 at this second. It's depends on the market you're looking at. So this is a serious solution. But following up on that, if you're looking, I mean, obviously you have a more let's say streamlined governance model, but unlike Bitcoin, you also have a more I would say visible leadership, right? And considering everything that we're seeing with the IRS and regulations, especially that you're based in the US, is there no concern on your part that there's a risk to putting yourself out there?
Oh, I suppose there's always a risk to putting yourself out there for any reason, whether it's stumping for a cryptocurrency or doing anything else. But we definitely are seeing that cryptocurrency networks are global. Mm-hmm. The Dash core development team, as you mentioned, Avi, is partially public. Maybe a third of them are totally anonymous, unknown to even their fellow members within the Dash core development team. I'm public, and And cryptocurrencies, they're not, they're people are open to them. You know, it's people, you know, people are open to them. And so I don't think, you know, for others may want to remain totally anonymous, and I totally respect that. But obviously, I think there's something to be said for just presenting the tool as it is. And I'm betting that enough people will say, actually, this is a useful tool. I do want to use it. That, you know, for me, it's worth the risk to attach my name to it.
Okay, and where do you see you know, the role of Dash in the ecosystem? Like, do you see it replacing Bitcoin? Is that the goal?
Well, I see us, and I am actively working for us to become the first widely used digital cash. No network has actually reached that yet. All of these cryptos are largely being held as speculative tools rather than being actively used in a consumer manner each day. So I would love for us to be the first network that is used for micropayments, for microtransactions, or even, you know, cross-border regular payments. And actually, I'm working on that this week with a campaign I've just launched on both Twitter and Facebook called #first-wallet. And I thought I would get maybe 200 people to participate in this. And we crossed 1,000 people yesterday. And so the campaign is that you help another person who doesn't own Dash or any cryptocurrency, really. You help them open their first Dash wallet. And then you take a picture of yourself with that person, and you put your Dash address in the post so that I can pay your wallet $20 worth of Dash. And then you can send half of that, 10 of it, to your friend who just opened their first Dash wallet. And you hashtag the whole thing first Dash wallet. And so since we've had 1,000 of those entries, and each of them has a friend with them, that's actually 2,000 people. And it's getting more entries every hour, not fewer. And so I'm actually having to bring people on to help me continue this campaign. And we've identified, we've tried to identify, based on like people's locales that they list in their profile, where most of these people are coming from. And most of them are coming from not so much like a US level type economy, but not so much, you know, like a Venezuela type economy either, but like right in the middle. So not so much the super banked, but not the unbanked either. Maybe like the underbanked. I think I've heard that term used. And we would love to become a money for the underbanked. And this is who is responding to my campaign the most at this time. And our transactions are so fast and so cheap that I think we may well be on our way there. However, that said, Avi, if you've ever used cryptocurrency, if anybody's ever used cryptocurrency, you do realize that it is still a little bit confusing to use. It's a little bit nasty looking, what with those long cryptographic addresses. It's not comfortable for your grandmother at this time. And we think that in order to go to the moon, we need to be. And so there are roughly 20 people, members of the Dash Core development team, both public and anonymous people, who are working on a private code repository that will be, of course, made public when we release the product. But they're calling the product Evolution. And it's basically a sort of rewriting of our blockchain so that our blockchain can store data that is like human readable. So like rather than Avi's Dash address being X47B98GY blah, 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 Avi's address as it is stored in the blockchain could be Avi's Dash wallet. And then that allows us to create an interface where all you have to look at is the human readable Avi's Dash wallet. And we can offer this completely code-based without having to rely on third-party wallet providers whose servers could go down at any time. And so this is the product that we're working to release. I wish it could be released yesterday, but I am heartened that enough people are responding to this first Dash Wallet campaign, even while we're still difficult to use, that I can only imagine, maybe how much more traction we might get once the Dash Wallet app just kind of looks like Venmo. No big deal.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. So you're busy getting the end users, but what about the use cases? What are, realistically, what do you think people will use Dash for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, and a lot of people, I think, have made a pretty compelling case that in the earlier stages, while a lot of holders are interested in, maybe just like holding, or rather like speculating a bit, that merchants, in order to, what few crypto accepting merchants there are, in order to entice them to spend that, they quite frequently find themselves offering discounts. I would say the most compelling use case for Dash at this time is buying an Amazon gift card for a 15% discount from bitcart.io, who just recently dropped Bitcoin support, by the way, and they're now Dash only. And as time goes, I think, yeah. And as time goes, I think, more and more of those will pop up. The second use case that I know of that I personally use is simply cross-border payments. Because like I said, I'm like with this first Dash Wallet campaign, I'm having to take on assistants to help me basically manage all of these new entries. And so if someone reaches out to me within, from the Dash Slack, a lot of people who like Dash, they hang out in this Slack. I welcome you to join it at dashchat.org. If someone reaches out to me and they're like, hey, Amanda, I can help you. And I'm like, oh, great, I'd love to tip you for helping me. I can tip someone on the other side of the world for helping me instantly and like almost for free. So I would say for me, that's the primary secondary use case, to pay people I know who I really only know online and get it to them. And I think we'll just see more and more of these over time. And all of this is, of course, on top of the obvious use case of speculation.
Mm-hmm. Obviously. No, but eventually, right? Let's say when the technology is fully mature, do you see it being used for micropayments? Because right now, Bitcoin, for example, fees are $6, $10. It's not clear who's going to use it for anything other than moving large amounts of money.
I absolutely see Dash being used as micropayments. In fact, if I may offer you to see a prototype of Dash evolution, if you were to ever go to YouTube and type in the keywords Dash evolution preview, you would see a prototype of what I'm talking about. And the evolution wallet is being built specifically to facilitate commerce, however small the payment is, because a portion of it is what we're calling like a sort of merchant app store or whatever, where if I'm a business owner, I can get my business listed within the Dash Evolution wallet. And then anyone who cares to spend their Dash, I see this as a sort of bootstrapping thing, right? Because a lot of times when you start someone out with cryptocurrency, their first question is, where can I spend this? And that is a legitimate question. And so it's tough to match merchants and people who want to spend their crypto. And so this wallet will store the Dash blockchain will store this merchant information and make it visible within the merchant app store, so that if I am, I choose a Dash accepting merchant, I want to order socks from their online store, I click it within my wallet and an invoice is generated within my wallet. And in that case, if you can read the plans for fees at dash.org/evolution, at least I believe they're documented there. But Dash Core CEO Ryan Taylor, he came to us from the legacy payments industry. He left like a sort of hedge fund he was working for on Wall Street and joined Dash about 2 years ago. And one thing that he believes is really important and must be included in evolution is that the fee model has to switch. Because he said cryptocurrency is one of the very few systems in which the customer is expected to pay the transaction fee, when traditionally it's almost always been the merchant paying that fee. And so evolution will eventually come to feature that, where the merchant actually pays your fee once you click pay the invoice. And then that leaves, that allows a sort of subsidy for us to make peer-to-peer transactions free indefinitely, which of course allows for the microtransactions.
I see. And regarding the, I'm not gonna ask you as as a general cryptocurrency expert, right? So how do you see the whole market evolving? Like, are we gonna see different use cases for different cryptocurrencies? Like Ethereum will be used for I don't know, fueling your electric car, and Bitcoin for paying off your ransomware attack, and Dash for sending money to your friend overseas? Or do you think there's going to be eventually just one blockchain?
Well, I think the question is not so much will we see different cryptocurrencies be used for different reasons, but rather, are there multiple apps for which people even care to use a blockchain? Meaning for which a blockchain would make that particular app faster and cheaper than it is today. So we've been talking about the first app, which is money, right? Mm-hmm. So then the question is, are there apps other than money for which people would find it advantageous to use a blockchain instead of what they use today already? Maybe. I honestly don't know. If that does become apparent though, like if there is a sort of like secondary app that becomes apparent, like you said, maybe like smart contracts or this or that, I do tend to believe that it will likely run on top of a blockchain that has already established its base token as money, however. Reason being, if it runs on its own blockchain, the people running hardware for that network aren't getting paid money. They're getting paid more like gift cards, only redeemable in that particular network. And so any person in all of the world, if you ask them, would you like some money? Or would you like the equivalent amount in gift cards? Everyone will say money. It's the most liquid thing there is. And we always want more options than fewer options. And so I do think that if these other apps become, like obvious, like, yes, I think people are willing to pay for that. I think they'll live on top of a blockchain that is already money. But as for whether, can or should one blockchain handle all of that? Or will it be multiple blockchains the way we have like multiple credit card providers, right? They all do exactly the same thing. And yet there's able to be space in the market for multiples of them because they do the same thing in slightly different ways. That could be the case too.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll just have to, keep following and see. And okay, I see we've almost talked for a half an hour, and I promise not to keep you more than that. So, is there any other topic that you want to bring up to for our viewers regarding Dash?
I would just invite any of your viewers who, okay, let me put out two invitations. First invitation is if you are the kind of person who's maybe a little boggled by some of the kinds of terminology that we've used throughout this chat or whatever, and you'd like to not be boggled, I invite you to view a 6-video series that I made called Dash School. The entirety can be watched in under an hour, and it basically explains blockchain like you're 5 and takes you through that to, hey, like, how does Dash in particular work? It gets a lot of views compared to my other videos, and so I think people like it, and I think you might like it. And then secondly, if you're the type of person who is well-versed in this sort of stuff, and you and I could interest you in learning more about Dash, I would invite you to stop by any of our online social channels where you can join and ask questions or join the discussion. And you can find all our social channels listed at dashnation.com/chat.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Amanda. And well, if you want to follow me, that's best at Avi Mizrahi on Twitter. And of course, keep following Finance Magnates. And I don't know what it is. Subscribe and give us a like. Okay. So thank you very much, Amanda. Good speaking to you.
You too. Thanks, Avi.
Bye.